Okay, try and keep this as brief as possible. Obviously, bought the Nissan Duke roughly back in May 2021 from Arnold Clark Wishaw. Had a number of issues with it. Um, Mainly to do with the front end of the car, steering issues, knocking, brake issues, uh, drop links, they were shot, got them replaced. Then that didn't cure the issue, and it turned out it was the steering rack that was totally shot. But by this point, because I stay in Alloa, I took the car under warranty to Alloa Shaw Park, where they did the steering rack, but they didn't put a new steering rack on, as I found out. Not at the time though. They didn't tell me that they put a reconditioned unit on, or second-hand part onto a Duke, which you could readily get new parts for. And it went away, but the knocking and all that was still there, so the steering rack did not cure the issue. And there was lower drop links, track rod ends replaced, struts were looked at, that said they were okay. It went from Alloa to Arnold Clark Citroen in Stirling. Reason for that they said, was because they had laser alignment, because the tracking was so bad on the car. The two front tyres were bald on the inner and outer edges. Completely illegal tyres, and that was after they did the steering rack. After some negotiation with Stirling Citroen and head office, Arnold Clark head office, had to keep contacting them umpteen times. A couple of times later, I think 3 times in total, they replaced the tyres. Nominal free of charge, but it wasn't like top rated tyres, but they still replaced the tyres because they admitted that because they'd incorrectly fitted the steering rack, it was their fault the tyres were illegal because the tracking was off. Arnold Clark Citroen Stirling laser aligned the car, but when they did that, they managed to twist all the steering rack gaiters and completely knacker them. It went back in to get that sorted, and they didn't fix it right. They were retwisted. I took it back after a local mechanic videoed underneath it, found all sorts of things wrong with it, and big parts on the chassis and uprights and legs and wishbones, all with code numbers that would be familiar with scrapyard, breaker yard parts. So the car went back to Citroen Stirling for the gaiters to be replaced. From head office, they were suggesting that should happen because they twisted them when they obviously did the track over the end adjustments. Didn't notice. They said they'd straightened them, but I said, wait a minute, they're just going to, because they've been torn and ripped in memory, so eventually they backed down on that and replaced them. But there's still ongoing issues. Today, along at the local garage, the slides have all been replaced on the brakes. Front are knocking so bad they need new carriers. Now, carriers on a Nissan are hundreds of pounds for each one, because basically that's your main brake assembly that the shoes fit in to, and then obviously the disc goes in between that, and it's what lets the brake pad, this is what I'm being told, so it needs a replacement, 2 of those. And this is a car that's, when I got it, done 36,000 miles. I've spent between £300-400 upwards. If I go for carriers, I don't know how many hundreds of pounds that'll be. You could probably price that yourself. I'm not prepared to pay that for that. I'm holding off on that just now. And Sean has said that, you know, It's the only way to definitively stop the knocking stroke banging that I'm getting, because there's movement, and obviously under braking and reversing you get this squeak, and the pads are moving within the carriers themselves, so instead of being snug, there's too much movement. So I've been in touch with head office at Arnold Clark, I don't know how many times. I've attempted to try and return the car, but getting led up the garden path, told that the only people that can authorise that is Wishaw. Spoke with a Graham Nell and a Stephen Kirk, no interested. Just the general managers of Wishaw and the sales manager, no helpful at all. If I want to take this further, I've taken advice with Citizens Advice and legal advice. They're saying charge on. You bought a value range car, what are you expecting? Things go wrong with cars, that's what I've been hit with constantly. Oh yeah, things go wrong with cars all the time. But I would suggest not in the first sort of 11 months. Must have had some bad luck for all those issues, including the mid-section of the exhaust falling off. Had to replace that. Meanwhile, I'm paying all these bills on top of my finance. And I've not stopped paying my finance. So that's my timeline update. Been in touch with head office again. They put me through a conference call to these two guys at Wishaw, but they never phoned me back. They said they would get a salesman to phone me back, they would take the car back, they would exchange it, but that was going to cost me money, right? Which I don't believe I should fork out any more money. I think if anything they should recompense me for all the time running about, car off the road. The times that they had the car, I'll give them their due. They did supply, bar one time, they supplied a courtesy vehicle. So, but they still haven't ever fixed the issues. They've just not sorted them. They've just said they've sorted them, but the issues are still there. The local mechanic that I've got works on taxis, commercial vehicles. He says never seen anything like it underneath it. Took photos of all the parts with the numbers, videoed it. Arnold Clark videoed it. I've got that somewhere, I'll need to dig that out. But they said, oh, there's nothing wrong with this. And Sean's like, I can't believe they would look at brakes and not recognise the fact that that is just, a catastrophic brake failure waiting to happen. And it's not through its MOT yet. It's just one thing after another. So obviously this is an update to Nick in the finance department of Toyota Finance, who have been really helpful. And obviously this investigation thing that Nick's undertaken, I don't envy his task, because Arnold Clark, I mean, you hear rumours about Arnold Clark, Arnold Shark. I've just been given the runaround from the get-go. Run around here, run around there, take a car here, take a car there. At one point, I got told to take my car to a Nissan garage in Alexandria, Helensburgh. How far away is that? Past Oban somewhere, I can't remember exactly where it was, but it was miles up, and I was going to have to drive there, leave the car and wait for it, and then a Nissan tech was going to have a look at it. But there's Nissan garages in Stirling that could have done that, because there's an issue with the steering rack, and turns out the Alloa service manager told me that they didn't even fit a new steering rack. They fitted a reconditioned steering rack, which is basically a second-hand steering rack, to the car. I'm still getting all these knocking noises and worrying if the car's going to turn straight round a corner or go straight off a ditch, because it's not going to go where I'm pointing it. 2 kids, and my wife drives a car. I've only got 1 car. All these things are really unsettling. Stress over the last 11 months alone, chasing up all these people, when they really, like I say, it all harps back to, you bought a value range car. Well, I'm really sorry, but at the time that was my budget, and I bought the car in good faith, and it's given me nothing but bother. So keeping it shortish, 10 minutes. But thanks, Nick. I hope this helps you, because I've spoke to so many people in Arnold Clark, and yet I've still not resolved it. I must have spoke to at least 3 people in head office on a number of different occasions. Spoke to at least 4 people at Wishaw, 4 people at Arnold Clark Citron, and at least 3 or 4 people in the Alloa branch. And we are where we are. So hope this reaches you via the email. Hopefully the attachment will go. I might have to send it via a link, but anyway, kind of might help. I don't know if it will or not, but